So a question we get asked pretty often is, should you sell your home on an as-is basis? And what does that mean? It's pretty simple. Most folks understand this. It's simply that, does someone want to sell their home without making the repairs, without getting it cleaned up, and kind of take a little bit faster and easier route to selling their home? Well, what it comes down to is what are the pros and cons of doing this, right? So one of the biggest pros is the time savings. So a lot of folks who want to sell their home as is, they don't want to take the additional time in order to get the home ready. And they have a specific time frame in which they want to sell their house, and they maybe can't make that time frame work if they've got to do all the repairs. Also, another variable comes into effect is the amount of money saved on not actually doing the repairs that are necessary to sell the home, right? So this is one of the bigger items, whether you simply don't want to go through the process of managing a construction project or going out and hiring someone, or like I mentioned before, the time commitment associated with that. Or most importantly, or maybe more importantly, is do you have the money in order to do these repairs that are necessary? And then lastly, one item that doesn't really get talked about all that often is once you make a repair to one area of the house, there are other areas that look fine now, but now maybe look as though they need updated because the new items that you did show off other variables that maybe didn't appear to need work. So that's a random one that kind of comes up that people don't talk about often, but we hear about it quite a bit. So those are some of the pros. Also, a few other of the big pros are, besides not making repairs, but when you sell your home as is, typically you're selling it to an investor. And when you sell a home to an investor, you're not paying commissions on that home sale, which can add up to be a pretty big number. Typically, it's roughly 6% of the sales price is a commission number. So if you sell a $200,000 house, the commission's $12,000. It's a pretty big number when it adds up. In addition to that, when you sell to an investor, you typically don't pay closing costs on that sale. So that'll also save you a few $1,000s as well. And lastly, like I mentioned, the time commitment, but not so much the time commitment and managing the construction project, getting the home ready for sale, and then listing it with an agent, and then waiting for a buyer who probably needs, 45 days or so to close on that home, which is a pretty long time frame when you start putting all those pieces together. But really the fact that if you want to close in 2 weeks, an investor can make that happen. While obviously there's no way that a 2 weeks sale is going to occur in that first example. But even deeper than that, let's say you plan to move out of town, or you're moving to a new home and there's a very set date that you absolutely have to close on. Well, that's also a scenario that an investor can help you with, right? We can set that date out, whether it be 2, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it might be, and set that as a firm closing date. And you can, sleep well at night knowing that date is set in place, independent of everything else. And since you're paying with cash and handling all of the items for closing, it's not as though financing or any of these other variables in a home sale really come up. So those are the benefits. What are the cons? Well, really the biggest con to selling a home as is, or the biggest negative factor, is simply sales price. So when you sell a home as is, or you sell it without making the repairs, without the commission and all of that, and picking the closing date and working on your closing schedule, typically what you have to give up is a little bit of the sales price. Now, some of that is made up for by the commissions and the repair costs and whatnot, but also investors have a profit margin that they have built into the deal. And that's typically the difference between the cost of the repairs, the commissions, the closing costs, and then that profit margin that the investor has to make. That's typically the reduced price that you will see on the home sale. But we do this every day. We'll buy over 200 houses in St. Louis this year alone. And if you have any additional questions, we're happy to help you. Once again, I'm Rob Heider with Core Properties. Phone number is 314-485-7311, or you can go to corepropertiesstl.com. Corepropertiesstl, as in St. Louis.com. Thank you.